Good afternoon, students. Today we'll begin with a new lesson, that is the childhood. Okay, it is an extract from the autobiography Wings of Fire, written by APJ Abdul Kalam himself. Okay, so here in this small extract, he talks about his childhood and how it was so instrumental in making him what he became later on in life. I was born into a middle class Tamil family in the island town of Rameshwaram in the erstwhile Madras state. My father Jainaluddin had neither much wealth nor much formal education nor much wealth. Okay, so in the first paragraph he talks about his father especially and mother. He says that though his father had not much education and nor much wealth, still he possessed great wisdom. Okay, so he goes on to say that about his parents in the first paragraph, and he says that he had an ideal woman to support him in his life. His father had a very ideal woman who supported him throughout. Okay, so you see, his mother's name was Ashiyama. So he became a very ideal helpmate for his father, and he says that he does not recall the exact number of people who were fed in their house. Okay, so he goes on to say that his mother was so kind and so generous that the number of people, outsiders, who came and ate at the house were far more than their family members themselves. Okay, so he said how mother also very kind lady and father was also a very wise person. And in the so he says in the next second paragraph he goes on to say that he says that he was not a very good looking boy who was born to very tall and handsome parents. Okay, his mother and father were very good looking people, but he was very different from them. Okay, he described his looks as an undistinguished looks. So where they live is also described. He says that they lived in an ancestral house which was built in the middle of the 19th century. Okay, he says it was a very fairly large Pakka house made of limestone and brick on the Mock Street in Rameshwaram. So the house was a good one. It was a Pakka house and a very large house, and it was built in the Mock Street in the island town of Rameshwaram. So he says, my austere father. Okay, so austere means someone who doesn't spend unnecessarily. Okay, so he says that his father had made sure that the family avoided all inessential comforts and luxuries. Okay, they were provided everything, whatever they needed, they were provided, but more than that, extra, nothing luxurious was given to them. But he says that food, medicine, clothes, education, everything was provided to them. And so he says that his childhood was very secure. He's very secure. He says both materially and emotionally. But as things turn out ugly, because that was the time when the Second World War was happening in all the parts of the world. So he says, when I was 8 years old, he was only 8 years old when the Second World War happened. Okay, for reasons I have never been able to understand, a sudden demand for tamarind seeds erupted in the market. So a strange thing happened when the Second World War took place. In the market, there was a great demand for tamarind seeds. Now, usually we don't consider the tamarind seeds to be very important, but all of a sudden there was a great demand for the tamarind seeds. Okay, so he says that he used to collect them and sell them to a provision shop on Mock Street. Okay, so every day he used to get around the princely sum of one anna he used to get by selling the tamarind seeds. My brother-in-law Jalaluddin would tell me stories about the war, which I would later attempt to trace in the headlines in the army. Though he was a very young boy, he was interested in knowing about the war and everything which was going on. As a very young boy, he was very curious to know about things which were happening. Okay, so he used to hear stories from his brother-in-law, whose name was Jalaluddin, and not only that, whenever he get the newspapers, so the one such newspaper's name is given here, it's Dinamani. Okay, so he used to trace the headlines about the war. So he goes on to say, our area being isolated was completely unaffected by the war, but soon India was forced to join the Allied forces and something like a state of emergency was declared. He says that though the area was since isolated from the rest of the country, so it was not much affected, but when India also joined the war, then some problems came in their lives. So the first thing was in the form of the first casualty came in the form of suspension of the train halt at Rameshwaram station. So before the war, before India participated in the war, so the train used to halt at Rameshwaram as well. People used to get the things whenever the train halted, but that stopped. That facility was stopped. So what happened? The newspapers now had to be bundled and thrown out from the moving train on the Rameshwaram road between Rameshwaram and Dhanuskodi. So what happened between these two places, Rameshwaram and Dhanuskodi, the newspapers had to be thrown out from the moving train and people had to go and catch them. Okay, so he says that so his cousin was working as a news distributor, okay, newspaper distributed. It became very difficult for him because before the train used to halt, stop, and he used to take the newspapers, but now since the newspapers had to be thrown from a moving train, so he had to catch them properly, so he needed one help. And since Kalam was also free at that time, he thought of taking his help. In this way, Kalam got his first job of helping, of becoming an assistant to his cousin brother Samsuddin, his cousin Samsuddin. And he says that he got some money by helping him, so it was his first wage. Okay, half a century later, 50 years later, he can still feel the pride of earning the first wage. The pride is the same. 50 years back he earned his first wage. Today also he can, after 50 years also, he can feel the same pride in him. Okay, so he say in the fourth paragraph, or we will say, every child is born with some inherited characteristics into a specific socio-economic and emotional environment and trained in certain ways by figures of authority. Okay, so every child is disciplined. Some have parents, some have teachers and their idols. Okay, every child is trained in a specific way, brought up in a certain way. Okay, so what he says, he had imbibed some characteristics from his parents. So he says that from his father he inherited honesty and self-discipline, and from his mother goodness and deep kindness, and so did his three brothers and sister. Okay, so he says that he had three other brothers and one sister as well. All of them were a very good people. And he goes on to say about his friends, best friends. He had three best friends in his childhood. They were Ramanada Shastri, Aravindam, and Shiva Prakashan. All these boys were from Orthodox, Hindu, Brahmin families. As children, none of us ever felt any difference amongst ourselves because of our religious difference and upbringing. In fact, Ramanada Shastri was the son of Pakshi Lakshmana Shastri, the high priest of the Rameshwaram temple. Later, he took over the priesthood of Rameshwaram temple from his father. So he tells about his childhood friends. That all three of them belonged to the upper class Brahmin society, and one of them was the son of the chief priest. Okay, so Ramanada Shastri, he was the son of the chief priest. Okay, so being a Muslim also, he had friends who belonged to the Brahmin society, very orthodox Brahmin society. You can see how secular they were. They mingled despite all their religious differences. Aravindan went into the business of arranging transport for visiting pilgrims, and Shiva Prakashan became a catering contractor for the Southern Railways. All of them became well settled in life. Ramanada Shastri, when his father became old, he took over the priesthood from his father. He became the chief priest of the temple, and one of them, Shiva Prakashan, became a catering contractor, and Aravindan joined the business of arranging transport for uh, visiting pilgrims. Okay, so because Rameshwaram is a holy town and many people visit it every year. So in that town there was a particular ceremony which was very famous. Okay, it was the every year it used to be held. It was the Sri Sita Rama Kalyanam ceremony. Okay, the marriage ceremony of Sita and Rama used to take place every year. So our family used to arrange boats with a special platform for carrying idols of the Lord from the temple to the marriage site situated in the middle of the pond called Ramatirtha, which was near our house. Okay, so he says that his family also was involved in that ceremony in some way or the other, because his family used to arrange boats for carrying the idols. So you can see here how, being a Muslim, also they did not hesitate to carry the idols to the temple. How secular minded people they were, we can come to know from this example. So he goes on to say that at home also all the religions were given equal importance, because at night time the bedtime stories were from the Ramayana and the Quran. Both the Hindu scriptures and the Muslim scriptures were told to them by the grandmother and the mother. One day, when I was in the fifth standard at the Rameshwaram Elementary School, a new teacher came to our class. I used to wear a cap which marked me as a Muslim, and I always sat in the front row next to Ramananda Shastri. Okay, so he says that so far in his childhood also, he had never come across any kind of discrimination so far in his life, because he was a Muslim and that was a Brahmin majority people were there. He never faced any kind of discrimination. But one day, what happened? A new teacher had come, and he did not know much about the uh, social structure which existed in that area. So he came, and when he saw that Abdul Kalam used to wear a cap which marked him as a Muslim, and he saw that his friends, a Brahmin friend, Ramananda Shastri, was sitting with him. The Hindu teacher became he was horrified that a Brahmin child, a Brahmin boy is sitting with a Muslim boy. He could not digest it himself. So what he said, he, in accordance with the social ranking, as the new teacher saw it, he told Kalam to go back and sit. And that was really a heart touching moment, because on the day when the teacher told Kalam to go and sit on the back, his friend Ramananda Shastri could not digest it, and he started crying like anything. When he saw that Kalam had gone and sat on the back, he really became very sorrowful, and he started crying. That day left a lasting image, lasting impression on me. He says that that incident I could never forget, that my friend was crying for me. After school, we went home and told our respective parents about the incident. Lakshmana Sastri summoned the teacher and, in our presence, told the teacher that he should not spread the poison of social inequality and communal intolerance in the minds of innocent children. So, after school, both the children went home and they told their respective parents about the incident which had taken place in the school, and the parents were very unhappy with the new teacher and his behavior and attitude. So they told him, Lakshmana Shastri, who was the chief priest, who was the father of Ramananda Shastri, he called the teacher and told him not to spread this kind of communal intolerance in the minds of innocent children. He bluntly asked the teacher to either apologize or quit the school and the island. And he even warned the teacher that if he does not apologize, he should leave the school and the island town forever. Not only did the teacher regret his behavior, but a strong sense of conviction Lakshmana Sastri conveyed ultimately reformed this young teacher, and the teacher became a very changed man. He realized his mistake, and because the chief priest himself was telling him not to do that, so he became very upset, and he really decided to change himself. On the whole, the small society of Rameshwaram was very rigid in terms of the segregation of different social groups. Okay, so very strict, because the Brahmin people were quite strict. They will not mingle with other caste and other people of other religion. And here, the people were very religious and orthodox, but his science teacher, his name was Shiva Subramaniam Iyer. He was an orthodox Brahmin himself, okay, but he tried to break the social barriers. The social barriers, in the sense, the caste system, the religion, which was creating a kind of wall between human beings. So he wanted to break those things, okay. Though he was also an orthodox Brahmin, but he did not like the kind of inequality which prevailed in the society. So he wanted to spend time with different kinds of people, with people of all kinds of religion. He used to spend hours with me and would say, Kalam, I want you to develop so that you are on par with the highly educated people of the big cities. What he says, Kalam, I want to develop you so that you can compete with the people in the big cities. I want you that you should become like them. You should also be competitive. One day he invited me to his home for a meal. His wife was horrified at the idea of a Muslim boy being invited to dine in a ritually pure kitchen. Okay, so he invited him for dinner one day, and the science teacher's wife was so horrified that a Muslim boy will be eating meal in her ritually pure kitchen, clean, okay, clean kitchen. She refused to serve me in her kitchen, okay. So she refused to serve dinner, lunch to the boy, meal to the boy in the kitchen. But Shiva Subramaniam did not mind. He did not give up. What he did? He served the meal and served it with his own hands. He served the food to Kalam with his own hands and sat down beside me to eat his meal. His wife watched us from behind the kitchen door. Okay, his wife was silently watching them from behind the kitchen door. I wonder whether she had observed any difference in the way I ate rice, drank water, or cleaned the floor after the meal. Okay, so Kalam all the time was thinking, what difference had she found in me? After all, I'm also a human being. I eat the same way, I drink the same way, I clean the same way. Now, why do people discriminate others on the basis of their religion? Okay, so he was thinking to himself as a young boy. When I was leaving his house, Shiva Subramaniam Iyer invited me to join him for dinner again the next weekend. Again, the teacher invited him that you should come to my place. Though his wife was very angry, okay, the teacher said that again you have to come and eat dinner in my house next week also. By this time, Kalam was little bit uneasy. Why? Because the wife was not happy about that, and he realized that. So he said, no, sir, I won't be able to come. But still, Shiva Subramaniam said, no, you have to come to me. So he says that if you and I don't change this kind of mentality in people, who will do? Once we have decided, then we have to work so that people really change their mindset. Really, people need to give up some of the practices which are not in the best interest of the society. Next time, it was a kind of a miracle, because when Kalam visited the teacher's house, what happened? This time, the wife served him with her own hands. So this was the change which brought about. We can change people in that way. One incident is where when the new teacher was scolded for his behavior by the chief priest, and which changed him. Here, Shiva Subramaniam did not scold his wife, but when he served dinner, when he served meal to Kalam with his own hands, the wife changed his way. This time, she served dinner to Kalam with her own hands. Then the Second World War was over and India's freedom was imminent. Indians will build their own India, declared Gandhiji. The whole country was filled with an unprecedented optimism. I asked my father for permission to leave Rameshwaram and study at the district headquarters in Ramanathapuram. Okay, the Second World War finished, and now he has also grown up. So he asked his father to go to Ramanathapuram for further studies. Okay, he told me as if thinking aloud, Abu, I know you have to go to grow away. He says that yes, in order to grow, you have to go away from us. And he gave them the example. He gave Abdul Kalam, the example also, he says that, does the seagull not fly across the sun alone and without a nest? Okay, the seagull also does the same thing. After giving, after it is hatched, it is alone and across the sun and alone without a nest. It goes and learn by itself how to fly. So in the same way, human beings also need to go away from their parents in order to grow up. He quoted Khalil Gibran to my hesitant mother, but the mother was unwilling to send him. So he quoted one of Khalil Gibran. He's a great poet. So, okay, your children are not your children. He says that poet says that your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They are simply the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself, because love life so much that it produces life. You are just a source, but actually the children do not belong to any of the parents. In fact, they are life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. They come through you, that's true, but not from you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. So he's saying that, yes, children need to be given love and care, but we cannot impose our thoughts on them. They should be free to think their own way and to act in their own way. They should be left free to decide what they want to become in life. Okay, so this is a wonderful extract from APJ Abdul Kalam's autobiography, Wings of Fire, where he talks about his childhood and how it played a very important role in molding him and shaping him. Thank you.